Welcome to the Center for State Policy and Leadership 2019 Convocation. My name is David Racine, the Executive Director of the Center. Every year about this time, we gather the staff and friends of the Center over breakfast to review highlights from the past year. Before we get started with the program, I'd like to acknowledge a few people in the room. We have our distinguished Chancellor Susan Cook and Provost Dennis Papini here. If you want to, you got to raise your hand more. There you go, Dennis. Thank you. We very deeply appreciate your support for the Center and its work. Also, Nicole Timms, who joined us in January and immediately was tasked with organizing both this event and the Public Affairs Reporting Hall of Fame. She deserves a big round of applause for diving in head first. Just so you know, I mean, maybe those of you who have done events will appreciate this. There's always a lot more that goes into this than you think. And so, you know, when you're tasked with doing it, you suddenly realize there are, you know, pages and pages of details that you have to work out. So hats off to Nicole for taking care of this event, and certainly in the Public Affairs Reporting event, I think we'll be just as good. Last but not least, and I'm guilty of sort of just taking this wonderful service for granted, the UIS Food Service deserves a round of applause. I can't think of any group that I've encountered in my life that so often hits the mark. If you know, there are a lot of universities that contract out their food service, and you hear complaints about it all the time. I think we've never done that. And we have our own, and it works wonderfully well. They always put on the Ritz, or kind of the Central Illinois equivalent of that. So thanks very much to the UIS Food Service. So, the theme for this year's convocation is, in our annual report, which you'll be giving access to at the end of this program, is innovating. Innovation is in the air these days, as you probably know. Under the leadership of the University of Illinois system, the Discovery Partners Institute has been launched in Chicago, and it has become the central node of the Illinois Innovation Network, of which I'm proud to say Springfield was the first named hub back in August. Many of us have been involved in that effort. I think there are people in this room who are deeply engaged. Innovation has, I don't want to be bragging too much here, but innovation has long been part of the Center's modus operandi. We haven't often referred to what we do as innovation. I think that's sort of part of the public service ethic that defines who we are, not to call attention to ourselves too much. But I believe innovation is an appropriate way to look at what we do, certainly a lot of it, as the examples we're going to talk about this morning will show. First up is the Child Protection Training Academy, a unique way of preparing people for what is undoubtedly the most difficult job in public service. To bring us up to date in the Academy's work, we have Betsy Goulet. That's a change in your program. Amy Wheeler, the lead trainer for the Academy, was supposed to do this, but because Betsy was going to be whisked off to Mississippi, I think, for an event, and her flight got canceled, so she's here this morning to give us an update on where the Academy is at. Betsy?
Everyone knows I really came for the bacon. And I have to say, in talking about food services, today it was amazingly crisp. So that was wonderful. I am excited to be here, and I do want to point out Amy and Taylor are both here, our amazing staff. Susan, our director, is in Chicago, where the governor and the new director of DCFS, just as of today, are touring what we're calling the Chicago Sim Lab. It's our expansion plan to Chicago. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Most of you have seen the little house on campus. You might pass by it and wonder why we haven't fixed it up or done something to it. And there's obvious reason, as David mentioned, why we are using it in its current look, in the current way that it presents itself. It is now the place where 655 new child protection investigators have trained. It is a lifelike environment where they are exposed to and interact with family members who are actually standardized patients from the SIU School of Medicine. We give them a case when they come to campus, This is the schedule that they follow when they arrive on Monday morning, and they are working a case just as they would if they were in the field. They're introduced to the report, they move into the knock on the door, where they don't know who's behind the door when they arrive, just as you would if you were in the field. And I say that with authenticity because I spent 9 months as a child protection investigator. I was horrible in the field. I was not well suited for the job, and I left wondering why someone would put me out in the field so unprepared for such complex work. And so that's been sort of the story of this project and bringing it here. It's here for a lot of reasons. It's here because of David Racine. It's here because the chancellor said yes to letting us have this house. And it's here because it continues to work. We have 3 years now of evaluation data that fills us with incredible encouragement. We only dreamed that at some point we might impact turnover and retention at the department, which is a terrific problem that across the country child welfare agencies deal with. I can tell you, sort of David's letting you know that his report will be out when we leave here today. Other exciting news, the 3rd year report will be out this week. And for the first time, we have data that suggests that non-SIM trained investigators at the 18-month mark are more than twice as likely to leave their jobs than those investigators who have gone through SIM training. That is remarkable, and we're going to build on that success. So this is an interior picture of a couple DCFS investigators, one of our standardized patients you'll see in the clip in a second, and one of the trainers from DCFS.
Just like she showed you, I can show you. I mean, you saw that was an accident. I mean, this is an accident too. The kid's just rambunctious. He bounces around, he jumps around.
I understand kids can be a little wild, but we do, just for the investigation reasoning, so I just want to kind of explain it to you a little bit. When we're doing this, we're going to be taking pictures and things like that.
You're not a cop, but you're doing an investigation.
It is an investigation. As I said earlier when we were talking, there is an investigation because of the report.
It was an accident.
I am not an officer. But during this process, we will have to take some pictures, just so that when I show my supervisor what's going on,
I don't want to take up too much time, but that gives you a look inside the house. Very realistic, very high stakes for these folks. But we tell them this is a safe environment where they can train and make mistakes without worrying about what the outcomes will be. Unlike the field, where every day you set foot in someone's house and you have to make very critical decisions about a child's life. This is where it's okay to make mistakes. So our future plans lie a little bit to the west of campus. You might recognize this house as the Spencer House. And again, we're fortunate there is property on this campus that would be amazingly suitable for expanding our training. We are looking at working with the Department of Corrections, with the Department on Aging, with we're expanding throughout the state with all of the DCFS workers, including those that do placement and intact services. And we're hoping to bring an entire nation of simulation universities. There are very few of us we could fit in this room, but we want to learn from each other about best practices in simulation training. So that pretty much brings you up to speed. And if you watch the news tonight, you may see Susan interacting with the governor in Chicago. That has also been a very interesting part of the last year as well. Thank you.
But they're not doing a simulation. Susan and the governor are not. Governor's not a standardized patient for the, okay, good. Next we have the one unit of the center with innovation in its name, Innovate Springfield, I-SPY as it is sometimes called, was transferred to UIS by the Community Foundation for the Land of Lincoln in August. I think Stacy Reed from the Community Foundation is here. You want to, thanks to Stacy and the president of the foundation, John Stremsurfer, for having the vision to create this in the first place, and we're really deeply grateful that it's now here at the university, where we think we can continue to build and develop it as part of our contribution to the Discovery Partners Institute Illinois Innovation Network. To bring us news from Innovation Springfield, we have Sarah Beth Ayers, its Business Incubation Coordinator. Sarah?
Good morning. My name is Sarah Beth Ayers, and I'm the Business Incubation Program Coordinator with Innovate Springfield. We're one of the newest additions to the UIS and Center for State Policy and Leadership family. At Innovate Springfield, we're catalyzing economic development and supporting the local culture of innovation by creating a collaborative space and community where ideas ignite, businesses incubate, and entrepreneurs and social change makers innovate. And we do this through our two program areas, social innovation and business incubation. Our social innovation program is focused on building our community's capacity to support its most vulnerable residents as effectively as possible through the use of evidence-based programs, ultimately working to strengthen our workforce through improvements in education and training and through the implementation of the Sangamon Success Report. The Sangamon Success Report is a set of 25 evidence-based recommendations for programs to help narrow the achievement gap for less advantaged youth so that everyone can participate in the culture of innovation. One example of a program to come out of the Sangamon Success Report is called Nurse Family Partnership. Nurse Family Partnership connects first-time expectant mothers to a nurse to follow them through their pregnancy and for up to 2 years after, providing individualized support and connecting them to resources to help improve their health outcomes and the health outcomes of their babies. And since being established in 2018, 25 beautiful babies have been born to the Nurse Family Partnership program here in Springfield. Our business incubation program supports startups and entrepreneurship by offering resources, advisors, and professional development workshops aimed at cultivating strong and sustainable local businesses. And when I was hired in March of 2017, our business incubation program had 13 members. And today we have 65 members, a few of which who are in this room. Please raise your hands. Thank you. Like many Springfield natives, I have long-standing ties to this institution, with both of my parents having worked here and my father, Dr. Michael Ayers, right here, having retired from the university after dedicating more than 30 years to expanding and growing the value that UIS brings to our community. So it seemed only natural that I pursue my higher education at UIS, having earned my bachelor's in fine art and my master's in public administration within these very walls. So now I get to continue the work of my parents and give back to the community that has given so much to me. When I started my education, I never thought that I would work at a business incubator, but here I am in a role that truly captures the perfect marriage of my skills. The entrepreneurs working in our space and taking advantage of our resources are creating the jobs of tomorrow, and our social innovation program is working to ensure that everyone in our community is equipped to fill those jobs, situating us to compete at the highest level. We created a short video to highlight some of the milestones we've achieved since becoming university-led in August of 2018, but I would like to invite all of you to come and see the space because I'll give you the formal tour. Thank you. Roll the tape.
The mission of Innovate Springfield is to serve as a catalyst for economic development in Springfield. That's kind of the core of the work that we do.
Yep. We're supporting the overall economic development strategy for our region and championing the local culture of innovation through our two program areas, social innovation and business incubation.
The impetus of it was really to be that driver for creating new companies, having a fully developed workforce that could then either transfer into the work of the companies or have be a part of that innovation system themselves.
Our social innovation program is focused on advancing the Sangamon Success Report.
It's a set of 25 evidence-based recommendations for programs to help narrow the achievement gap for less advantaged youth. So ultimately the idea is that everyone can participate in the culture of innovation, whatever that looks like for them.
We have always really been connected to the university. On the social innovation side of things, having the Sangamon Success being the seminal document that kind of came out of the Center for State Policy and Leadership, to the College of Business supporting the business incubation side of things. So, you know, they've been engaged in both of our program areas from the very beginning. So developing that partnership just was a natural occurrence, I think, that took place, that then as we really thought more about what the future looked like, it made more sense to really make that a concrete relationship and become a university-led incubator. And the benefits are, I think, mutual, and in that we sort of bring that connection to the downtown and connecting faculty and students to our members, to us really having access to the knowledge through expert faculty, world-class, you know, faculty and students. Already we've seen that pay in dividends in kind of the growth that we've experienced since the transfer in August. So we have everything from all-natural lip balm to those tech startups and software development, app developers, and kind of everything in between.
So we've got people who are doing marketing and, you know, freelance writing, and then we also have a co-working membership and a student membership too. So we've got just people who are working in all of the areas.
What I'm trying to do is to bring 2 FDA approved drugs that can actually, in combination, treat hearing loss. Innovate Springfield helped because through them I could actually talk to Chuck Davis, who's the lawyer, who actually told me what kind of company we could set up. And then the other thing is Innovate Springfield introduced us to Research Park. They provided me with 2 consultants who helped me actually apply for an STTR grant from NIH. So we were able to accomplish that within 4 weeks. There's no way I would have said, okay, you know what? Heck with all of those. I can do it myself, you know, because I think this is fantastic, what we're doing.
I think the future is really bright. The university is engaged in a statewide initiative called the Illinois Innovation Network. And Springfield was named the first innovation hub. But the idea is to really have a connection for our students and faculty to engage with other hubs across the state in their areas of expertise and interests, and be this collaborative place for these ideas to really generate and bubble up. So we, being the state capital, have a unique position with our proximity to legislators and policymakers, and that's really important to the hub and the rest of the members of the hub. But it's also an opportunity for us to explore new ideas, but just really to grow some of those things that we've already started.
Now is the time for us to compete at a level like we've never done before, and I think that all of this is just creating the opportunity for that to happen.
Good video produced by our own Steven Spielberg, otherwise known as Cody Pope. Among the most critical things we do in the center is represented in the name Illinois Innocence Project. The project is an innovation, not just in its strong reliance on undergraduate students to help exonerate the innocent, but also in its novel efforts through public policy and police training to reduce the likelihood of wrongful convictions in Illinois. John Hanlon, the project's executive and legal director, is here to give us a rundown on their accomplishments from this past year. John?
Thank you, David. I'm glad to be here because 20 hours ago my plane was taking off in a tornado warning in Atlanta. So I'm glad to be here or anywhere, frankly. We've had an incredible year with the Illinois Innocence Project. Being a part of the center is just it's a treat and an honor that I never anticipated that would happen. All the things and all the people and the programs that we get to interact with has just been so beneficial to so many, starting with our students, some of whom are sitting here, our staff, some of whom are sitting here, Larry Golden, our founding director, and others that what I heard David call the innocence table. So the innocence table is right here, and
It's not innocent.
well, they're innocent of something, so I'm not sure what. So as I said, we've had a wonderful year at the project, and okay, there we go. I love that picture. It's a beautiful day, unlike yesterday. Wrongful convictions occur because mistakes happen. And what I'm going to talk about is not so much our casework at all and the wrongful convictions that occur, but that's why they happen, because mistakes occur all over the so-called criminal justice system. Our mission is threefold: advocacy, cases, education, students, and police, and reform in the legislature. Education, we have these wonderful students, as I mentioned, and we actually got the cards in the right order for that picture. This year we have 15, right now we have 15 undergraduate students, and what I'll say about that is this. I just got back from the International Innocence Convention in Atlanta, and we remain the only institution that utilizes undergraduate students to do innocence work. Now, and I don't want to slight our graduate students. We have several graduate students as well who take part and assist us, but we are primarily undergraduate students. Now, what does that mean? That means we're training people to go to law school and into the legislature and into other areas where they will have an on-the-ground experiential learning training before they walk in the door. So we're really proud of our undergraduate students. We've had about 90 undergraduate students who last year put in an average of, I think the number is 368 hours per student just last year, 2017-18 academic year. As I mentioned, we also now have the country's only Innocence Project training program of police officers, the only ongoing one in the country. We have trained 469 young cadets, police cadets. They're just about ready to hit the streets. The law says they have to have this training. At the Police Training Institute, we get one of the days to train them in wrongful conviction avoidance, which I came up with that name. I just kind of like that. But as you know, we know that this is one of the differences of where people are going to get treated properly or not properly in the criminal justice system. And to have almost 500 young officers that we've spoken to and introduced our exonerees to. That woman there is an exoneree from Indiana, so not ours, but we brought her over to talk about her case with the young officers. We're really proud of this program. We also have a class that almost 1,000 students have taken, thanks to Larry, since 2001. Advocacy, the casework this past year, the case I want to call your attention to is Grover Thompson. We had, I guess I can slide this under innovation, we had Illinois' historically first ever posthumous exoneration. A man on the right named Grover Thompson. Grover Thompson died 23 years ago in prison in 1996 after serving 15 years for something an attempt murder in Mount Vernon, Illinois, that he did not do. And it's not me that says that, it's the police officers who caught the serial killer who did that crime who says that. So we're proud of having, as I said before, I would not go looking for any more posthumous cases, but a student brought it to us, and we were not going to run away from it for that reason. So, and as you can see Grover there, he's 59 there, and he looks about 80, the effect of what prison did to him. Reform, this is definitely under the category of innovation. That's exoneree James Kluppelberg testifying to the legislature, and Jim Reed here will tell you that James was a very effective witness toward several different bills that we had pending last year. The one on the bottom of that list right there, jailhouse informant legislation, became law on November 30th of 2018. Governor Rauner had vetoed that bill, which we had worked hard, which we got through the Senate in 2017, got it through the House in 2018. Governor Rauner vetoed the bill in July of 2018, and on November 30th, we worked hard with the legislators to get the bill the veto overridden and the bill passed. We now have what my fellow Innocence Project colleagues are referring to as the best jailhouse informant law in the country. So we're very proud of that. And that's it. We had an event every year. It's been a busy spring. As I said, those people collectively served 96 years in prison for crimes that they didn't do. And now they're a great band. So find them on YouTube and check it out. It's a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
They are a good band. We're going to have them next year? Yep. So come to the Defender of the Innocent event. Uh-oh. Hey, there's no media in here, right, Randy, that could cover that? Okay, good.
Yes.
The center has been doing surveys of nearly all kinds for decades now, but until this past year, we have not really tried to tap into public opinion on key public policy issues facing the state during an election year. Bringing us highlights from this first annual Illinois Issues Survey is Matt Case with our Survey Research Office. Matt?
Thanks, David. I'm Matt Case, Research Manager in the Survey Research Office here. As David said, we've done surveys for years, but we really never did anything at the statewide level. And so I was really excited to work with David and also Randy at NPR Illinois to do something that would get more traction outside of the Springfield area. So I'm going to talk just real briefly about some of the findings from the survey. So the survey was a telephone survey of registered voters in Illinois. It examined responses to both state and federal policy issues. It was really an in-depth look. We were not trying just to find out who somebody was going to vote for governor or any other office. And then we really tried to use the best survey questions that we could, but then we tailored questions as we needed to because obviously Illinois issues are not going to be found in some of the other national outlets. So as I said, it was a telephone survey. We used registered voters. We had a Spanish-speaking interviewer do 25 Spanish-speaking interviews, which was incredibly important to keep the survey representative. The time frame for the survey, we did this sort of in the heat of the election season. So it was really a great time to do the work. The margin of sampling error, anything under 4 is good. We were very happy with our methods, and I'll say that I think this was the best, from a methodological standpoint, survey that we've done since I've been affiliated with UIS. So, we looked at the direction of the state, and unsurprisingly, we found that there is a lot of room to improve. So, about 3/4 said that we're off on the wrong track versus just 14% that said we're moving in the right direction. And then about half said the state is doing about the same this year, and this is 2018, as it was last year, whereas about 37% said it was getting worse. So very few people thought it was getting better. And you know, really, I think this was probably had a lot to do with the time of year and leading up to the elections. People were obviously ready for a change, as we saw with the results of those elections. So Illinois has been dealing with a lot of population loss. This isn't entirely new, but you know, we were interested. We've asked this question at the local level in some of our community surveys, and we were interested in doing it at the statewide level. So we asked respondents whether they've considered leaving the state in the past year, and we found that over half said that they had considered leaving the state. And those who did consider it, they tend to mention things like taxes, state government and politics, better job opportunities. These are sort of the usual suspects for that sort of question. But one thing that I noticed when I looked back at all the responses that people gave was that they weren't mentioning things like the weather. So there really seemed to be some very big issues that Illinois needs to solve if it wants people to remain in the state. And we found that people who are younger, obviously, are much more likely. So almost 70% of people 18 to 34 had considered leaving versus just about a third of those 65 or older. So we looked at a number of policy issues, among them taxes. We found generally respondents favor the progressive tax policies. So 57% of those surveyed support a graduated income tax compared to just 36% who support the flat tax. As you might expect, this is going to differ based on your political affiliation, but even if you look at the Republicans, 41% support a graduated tax. So that's a sizable minority, I would say. And then we found, remember this is back in the summer of 2018, that a majority are in favor of raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. So we asked a few questions about immigration, and we found that essentially respondents believe that immigrants make the state a better place to live. They are broadly supportive of allowing undocumented children to remain in the state, but we did find that there are really large differences by political affiliation. So if you look there, you'll see that while 83% of Democrats are saying that immigrants make Illinois a better place to live, just 36% of Republicans are saying this. So that's a really drastic sort of difference there. We took a look at higher ed. This was, obviously it's important to us at UIS, but then this is really an issue I think that's important to everyone in Illinois and also very salient for people. So we asked individuals, you know, because of the high school graduates that are leaving the state, why do you think they're doing so? And so they were allowed to provide more than one response, but the most cited response was the expense of college, but then right after that is this uncertainty of state funding to colleges. So respondents are saying that if they don't know that the college that they send their kid in is going to be funded by the state, that's obviously an issue for them. We asked about a few questions about media trust. That's just been a really big issue at the national level. And we found that overall, media trust is pretty low, but that Democrats are a lot more likely to say that they trust the media than either political independents or Republicans. So it also varies by which news source you trust the most. So if you trust Fox News the most, you're not going to trust the media overall, but if you trust something like CNN, then you might have more trust in the media. And then in terms of division, if you look, 95% are saying Americans are somewhat or very divided by politics. And I believe it was something like 73% of those were saying that they were very divided. And then additionally on race, Americans believe that we're divided quite a bit. So to sum it up, essentially we found, unsurprisingly of course, that Republicans and Democrats differ from one another on the issues, but that there are independents that occupy this middle ground. And independents were the largest group that we had in the survey, and so my sense is, you know, that when we're doing this sort of work, we should really start and look at what these individuals favor. We also found people are holding, you know, mostly negative views on the state, which might be an artifact of the time that we conducted it before the election. And that, you know, overall, people do tend to favor the Democratic or progressive policy. So we are hoping to do the survey again. Thanks.
The sponsor of the Illinois Issues Survey, as Matt indicated, was NPR Illinois, which has been doing an outstanding job covering news in Illinois. To fill us in is NPR's General Manager, Randy Eccles.
Hi, and thanks for being here this morning. This is going to be an innovation in one sense for radio because we'll actually have pictures for you to see. You'll be able to see some of the people who are on the air. So we've been doing a lot more than just being a radio station. We've become a super strong journalism outlet in the area, and we're also going beyond that into engagement. So I'm about to run you through a couple things, introduce you to some of the staff if you haven't seen it. As Matt was saying, the Illinois Issues Survey was really important to us. We merged with Illinois Issues about 5 years ago, and a lot of the findings, as you can see bulleted there, are things that we'll continue to follow up on over the next year. The graduated income tax is already a big one that's in play. Opioids you'll be hearing a lot about and have been hearing a lot about. So the survey is a big piece of innovation for us, along with the Illinois Issues forums that we've been doing and the journalism. So some of our reporters I'll highlight here. One of the issues that came up in the survey was the minimum wage, and pretty surprisingly, it got done right away at the beginning of this administration. And Daisy Contreras, a PAR graduate, was one of the people who covered that story quite heavily. PAR is the Public Affairs Reporting Program here at the campus. In case you don't know, it's part of the College of Public Affairs and Administration. So Daisy also, though, got selected as one of 50 women to take the lead in media this year and got to go to New York City as part of a conference, and we're very proud of her and her work. Jacqueline Driscoll is another one of our reporters, and she was invited by the National Press Foundation to go to an Innovations in Public Health conference in San Francisco. She's our health and harvest reporter, so she's been busy. One of her top stories this year was about child safety seats. It was very well read. And she has been covering the marijuana legalization from medical to recreational to the use of hemp. So in a couple weeks, she'll be doing a forum downtown at the old state capitol, along with Sean Crawford and some other panelists about how that's going. So you're welcome to come to that. Sam Dunklau, another public affairs reporting program graduate. Last year he was our intern. We were able to hire him part-time. He's been covering a variety of stories in general assignment, including some that involve some of our friends at the center, like the Innocence Project, and just during the election, why do we have a comptroller and a treasurer, different things. Yet another PAR graduate who is one of our reporters, number 3, Mary Hansen. Her beat is basically Illinois economy. She's reported on things like rural broadband, the need for transition when retail and big boxes empty. And so she was also selected by the Springfield Business Journal as one of 40 under 40. And so was the head of our community advisory board. Our chair, Bethany Yeager, was also selected for that. She's another PAR grad and a former State House bureau chief for Illinois Issues. And if you look a couple up from Mary's picture there, you'll see Katie too. Katie Davison from Innovate Springfield also was on that list. Brian Mackey is one of our more veteran reporters. He's based at the State House. He's been covering over the past year the gubernatorial election quite heavily and a lot of those things. Right now, the graduated income tax is big. He's also another public affairs reporting program graduate. So you can see how important this program is to us. It's a big feeder and pipeline of our reporters. Brian also is one of the primary fill-in hosts of the 21st, which is a collaborative talk show we have on at 11 o'clock. It's based out of Urbana, but we participate a lot with it. And Brian was tickled in the past year. He was cited in a Illinois Supreme Court opinion with one of his stories, so he thought that was pretty cool. Positive, yes, yes, yes.
It wasn't a party.
No, no. Maureen McKinney is our equity and justice reporter. She covers a lot of things involving children's education, children's in poverty, children, and homelessness. Rachel Otwell has been very busy, another PAR grad, but she has not been on the air a whole lot lately. That's because she was selected as part of a partnership we're doing with ProPublica. Over this year, she's spending the entire year reporting on one deep dive story, basically around Me Too movement. And so she's looking at a variety of data now. She's been going through spreadsheets for months now, and we're expecting a story probably around June will start coming out of this. But it's an honor to be working with ProPublica on this. She was also selected as a Gwen Ifill Fellow. Gwen is the late PBS host. So that was a real honor she was able to go to. She went to the Work It Podcasting for Women convention out in New York City, where she's learning more how to hone podcasting skills. And then finally, she just won an AP award this weekend for a piece she did on African American bikers at having a rally here in Springfield. Dusty Rhodes has been our education reporter now for 5 years and has established herself as one of the top reporters in the state on education issues, frequently cited as the person to read if you want to understand the issue in a quick way. She has been honored by the Education Writers Association with some funding to be able to go to get some additional training in Chicago. She's also used quite often now with panels to discuss what's going on in education, as the Illinois Association of School Boards invited her. And the Noble Charter School story that she did and the follow-up still are our top read stories we've ever had at NPR Illinois. And then finally, we also have been doing some partnerships with places like Illinois Times, where they featured Dusty's reporting as their cover story. Sean Crawford is our news director, another PAR grad, and he brings it all together. He is making sure all these reporters are where they need to be and works with them to help them get their stories out. But in this past year, he started Statewide, which is a program that's on Fridays at 11. It gets replayed Saturday mornings at 9. It's basically highlighting all the best journalism in the state from the other public radio stations, but especially from our shop. And as you can see with the map of Illinois, we pretty much cover the whole state. It's on public radio stations around the state, but it originates here at UIS. And Sean, as part of that, will also do interviews for the show, including some of our faculty like Beverly Bunch, who's part of the center, talking about budgets, or a former PAR grad, Dan Vock, who works for Governing Magazine, who did a story about segregation and how Springfield is one of the cities that's pretty segregated. A lot of these stories David has highlighted in the annual report that you'll be able to look at later. This is just a picture I wanted to include. In the middle of State House coverage, sometimes it gets a little tense. It's good to be able to get a group selfie or whatever. That's in the bureau downstairs with all of our reporters, or some of our reporters. So we're more than a radio station, right? Innovation is the key thing we want to get across. And one of the big projects we started last year that Nijay Bogdanovich, our development director, started with Ann Straley, who is a professor here, is PodCamp. We invited, I think, 24 middle schoolers to come to the station and learn about civic education and media literacy. And they all interviewed a community leader and produced their first episode of a podcast. I don't know how many have done a second episode at this point, but the first episode went well. And we're doing it again this year. We're expanding it. So there's also a podcast academy for high schoolers we'll be doing this summer. And the latest UIS journal covered that in its issue. So, and we work and look forward to working even more closely with Innovate Springfield to expand on this podcasting. Media literacy is really important. As we were in the election cycle last year, we have brought in Jeremy Hobson, who is with Here and Now, our national program. And Jeremy and Sean Crawford sat on the stage at the Legacy Theater and talked about how media and credibility and claims of facts and not facts are working out in society. And it's been really important to get this conversation out more and more. Jeremy even broadcast the show from here, from the studios here at UIS. And so there were a lot of shout outs from across the country of folks who heard us and heard him mentioning that he was broadcasting from Springfield. So that was nice. The bottom picture, we also have done some local activity on this. We did a session called As Goes Journalism, So Goes the Community, and it's basically based on results lately that show that the less journalism there is, the more that incumbents they're not held accountable. And so it's really critical. Seeking Solutions Forums, I mentioned this earlier, the Illinois Issues Forums. We went around the state again last year to 11 different markets and put together panels of experts. The Office of Electronic Media went with us and videoed it. If you'd like to watch any of them, they're on nprillinois.org. But it was fascinating to hear what people had to say. It gives us a better sense of how the public is digesting the news and maybe some areas we need to look at for more coverage. And we've got very good coverage also from everything from St. Louis to Chicago, TV, radio, print, Galesburg, Carbondale. So we covered the state, and it's been a great program that AARP Illinois has helped support. So we're thankful for that. Again, we're not just radio. This is our digital imprint for the past year. You can see the heavy concentration in Chicago and Illinois, but also if you look at most major markets, you can see we're getting read in DC and New York and LA and San Francisco, Seattle, things like that. So the PAR program, I mentioned that a few times so far. It's really important. And Dana Vollmer is our current PAR intern. She was at the Illinois News Broadcasters Association convention this weekend, where she recorded the governor as he was basically detailing that he thought journalists were important too. Talking to a bunch of journalists, that wasn't a shock that he would say that, but she's out there getting that kind of experience. She's at the State House now reporting. Her piece was on the air this morning. You might have heard her coming in. She also has one of the top read stories right now on the site. This nurse's story has done really well. And just at this point, I want to say Charlie Wheeler has been a huge part not only of the PAR program and training all these people, but he's been an analyst on State Week for years, and a lot of people really enjoy listening to Charlie. He also has been a commentator for Illinois Issues pieces that we've had, and we really appreciate Charlie's contribution to the program. So the Hall of Fame for PAR, as David mentioned at the top, is coming up April 29th, and this is this year's inductees. Triff Alatsis is the publisher of the Baltimore Sun, which is, pretty big stuff. Patty Culhane was at MSNBC. She's now at Al Jazeera. And Natasha Korecki will be covering the 2020 presidential race for Politico. So they'll all be there Monday the 29th. You should talk to Nicole and get some tickets and show up for that. That should be really good. Charlie will also be making some closing comments about the state of State House coverage. So students are go beyond PAR for us. We have Bea Bonner, who was a Leadership Live student for us last year. She's now a full-time employee. She's our membership and engagement coordinator. Our current Leadership Live student is Tam Newbern. And we also have a graduate assistant doing civic education, Brandon Smith, who's been working with us. So that's great. We also bring students to campus. Our This I Believe program, I believe, is in its 13th year. And it brings high school seniors to campus to record a brief thought of what they think of the world. So one last thing to leave you with, and that is Public Radio Week is a first-in-the-nation attempt for us to show the breadth of what public radio does, from news to spoken word, storytelling, music. It's going to be starting the 29th with the PAR Hall of Fame, and the 21st program will be live at the Old State Capitol. A lot of different things going on. You can find out more at nprillinois.org, but this will be a great week. The highlight is Scott Simon will be here on Tuesday the 30th. He's a Peabody Award-winning journalist who does Weekend Edition, and he'll be talking about what he does. And so, as Illinois Times said last year for us, and we appreciate it, NPR Illinois is on a roll. Excellent, we like that. And then the last piece, if you ever drive by Grab a Java, you might have seen this. The late Pete Lazar, it's the only sign he ever did that didn't involve coffee. He did it for us last year during the pledge drive. We really appreciated it. This is your brain on NPR Illinois. So thanks. We like innovating. We like solutions. Appreciate it.
I like the idea of NPR being the equivalent of caffeine. Maybe that could get me off of actual coffee. The Center's Office of Electronic Media is a kind of hidden gem with state-of-the-art capability for conveying information and telling stories with film. To show us one recent example, we have the office's director, Cody Pope. Cody?
Thanks, David. The beauty of being in video is that I don't have to talk too much. I can just get to hit the play button and you guys get to watch something and we all are happy. So I'm going to be really brief up here, but I did want to highlight a couple projects that we've been working on this past year. And one of our main focuses, and thank goodness that the center's event here is about innovation, because we've been really trying to think of how we can evolve the way that we produce video and make something more than just people standing up and talking. How do we make it more dynamic? How do we make it more engaging? And as attention spans shorten, how do we just keep that attention on what we want to talk about? So a couple of projects that we did that I just want to hint at briefly. With IEMA and the Illinois Terrorism Task Force, they came to us with a video regarding mental health in high school students. So we went to 2 different school districts that have instituted revolutionary programs that are designed to support students that might otherwise become a danger. So they've got these mental health programs that they've we interviewed them and distributed that product to school districts across the state. So really exciting. And then Illinois Head Start came to us this year, and we produced with them. They were designing a learning management system for training new employees. They've got employees that are coming in year-round, coming and going. They needed something that they could sit down with them and have something interactive that really shows them what they need to know about their job and why it's important. And then also show them the impact of what their job is to the parents as well as the children that they're teaching. So those are both available on our YouTube page. You can find a link to our YouTube page on our website, uis.edu/OEM, if you're interested in seeing those. The one that I want to show you today, though, is one that we did with the Illinois Community Health Roundtable. This is a group of Springfield and Sangamon County community members that came together and were looking at issues in our community. And what they found was poor housing conditions were really impacting children throughout the surrounding area. They found that a lot of housing in this city is unsafe as far as mold, lead leaks, and you'll see a lot of the statistics that they found in the video. So we really had to come up with something that could convey all those statistics, that hard data, as well as show the true impact with the people that this is really hurting and how this really needs to be changed. So we needed to find something that could grab somebody's attention and really start the conversation off. Something that can motivate homeowners to make a change, citizens to make a change, landlords to make a change. So take a look, and I think we accomplished what we wanted to.
If kids aren't healthy, then they can't be at school. And if they're not healthy and they're at school, they're still not functioning to 100% of their abilities.
And DCFS said we had to leave the home because it was infested with the bed bugs and the landlord wasn't doing nothing. We have said numerous times something to him about the black mold. And my daughter ended up on a nebulizer, had to have breathing treatments.
And frustrated because they are living in an apartment or a location where there's molds, and their concern is that that's the trigger. If they can eliminate the trigger for these exacerbations, then definitely it would have a huge impact in terms of resource utilization in the emergency department. But more importantly, it would mean a better, healthy lives for these kids.
My grandkids had problems with their asthma due to being in the house with the black mold. They was back and forth in and out the hospital, and asked him for him to take care of the black mold that was in the closet, and he did. They could have fixed the issue. He could have fixed it before anybody moved in there. Here and there, he should have had it fixed. He's a better fit for working on the houses because I've had no problems with him since I've been staying there, and he fixes things that need to be fixed.
People need to understand that healthy housing is extremely important and is something that we all can do something about. If you are a homeowner or a landlord, pull your resources together. Talk to your tenants. Be upfront. If you're in legislation, pass legislation that makes it illegal to rent out properties to families that you know are unhealthy, or if it's brought to your attention that it's unhealthy, make sure that it's a requirement that it's taken care of immediately, because we're hurting our kids, and when we hurt our kids, we're hurting our community.
We thought it would be a good idea to end this year's convocation with the voices of students. In this case, the voices of a small selection of graduate public service and Illinois legislative staff interns. The video that you're about to see was produced by OEM in cooperation with Sherry Elzinga, Director of the Graduate Public Service Internship Program, and Barbara Van Dyke Brown, Director of the Illinois Legislative Staff Intern Program. Barbie, there's back there, yep. Before it begins, I'd like to ask all of the interns in the audience, if you are now or have been an intern, to stand and be recognized. Okay. Thank you all. Now the video.
I've been working here on water quality monitoring and assessment. And what I do basically here, I do several types of analysis. I also do quality control checks on some equipment, just to make sure that this equipment meets some kind of specifications and standards. I analyze water samples, basically drinking water and recreational waters. So it's really important for us to do that because it impacts the health of the citizens of Illinois positively. As you know, we analyze these samples for various types of environmental toxins. And these kind of toxins, if we don't try to monitor and detect them, they are very deadly and very toxic. I've always been interested in public health because I feel with public health we can have a lot of impact on a larger number of people. So when I got to know about the opportunities that this can offer me, I really felt it's going to be important. And basically because of my future goals, I want to go into research, I want to go into publications, and I want to do research that has to do with food and water safety. So I feel this is a kind of good opportunity, and I feel really lucky and fortunate to be here.
We're basically a research project that collects data from women who recently gave birth, and we ask them questions about their experiences before, during, and after their pregnancy. So I basically reach out to these women who have been randomly chosen, and I ask them if they'd be willing to participate in our research project. We collect it in order to implement programs and policies that would better the lives of moms and babies here in Illinois. I act as a Spanish interviewer, and there's a possibility that they may speak Spanish or not, but if they do, they have the option to do the survey in Spanish. We wouldn't be able to get that information if we didn't have a Spanish interviewer, and sometimes the moms don't do the survey when we send them the surveys through the mail. So by reaching out to them allows us to gather more data to help that population and other populations overall.
Right now I work in the office of the statewide 911 administrator, and that's a big job within itself. So I help with assisting the administrator with all things 911, whether it's consolidations, whether it's preparing other 911 authorities, and the biggest thing is helping them be next generation. Working in 911, it helps prepare 911 for people's worst day. So whenever people have, they need anything, we need to make sure that 911 is capable of handling everything. Now that we move into an age of, cell phones, most people have a cell phone versus a landline. So 911 has to be capable of being able to handle that efficiently. We're moving into an era where you can text 911, you can send video to 911, so that way they're prepared for whatever may happen and they can answer the call no matter what. With having military experience as well and wanting to have a career in government, this helps foster that. This helps me test the waters, especially with state government, and I can see all the moving parts, and it's very rewarding to see when a decision that I make or something that I work on and it goes up the chain and it comes back down, and then I go to different places throughout the state, I can see how those decisions affect other people. So you're not just another figure in the background. You're in the forefront, you're helping make decisions as well. You're working beside, the statewide 911 administrator, and it's just rewarding to see how the decisions you make affect so many people in ways that they never realized.
I think it's a wonderful experience. I think, being a bridge between constituents and the senator it's a really fulfilling experience to have. And, from the basic writing press releases to helping out with op-eds, being specific on important issues that happen in Illinois, I think it's a really, it's a very unique experience to have.
I was an accounting major in college, and then my first job right out of that was working in politics. So there was really a kind of a steep learning curve at first when I was starting on, because there's just things you can't really learn about the legislature until you work in it. I kind of got this new political perspective on kind of Springfield, and then carrying that into the state agency, you kind of just get to see all the kind of like inner workings of state government and everything.
And coming into the Capitol was quite the experience. You see sometimes the craziness of how bills get passed. The whole process from bills going into committee, to pushing that legislation, to showcasing it to your constituents, all of that, you kind of learn so many different angles of how a bill gets passed.
The ultimate focus is serving the public, so kind of going in with an approach like that, it can be a lot of fun.
I agree. I think like the smallest services that you do mean a lot to people, and for us it's just the small details, but for other people, for constituents, it's just so helpful.
I take endangered and threatened species information and information that comes from biologists, from citizen science, anywhere the information is coming from, and I put it into the National Natural Heritage Database system. And that system helps track endangered and threatened species, so we can kind of get an idea of where they're at, their behaviors, and it helps us better conserve them. The GPSI internship has actually helped me narrow down my passion and has also helped me feel more comfortable in reaching out for those specific career goals as a communication specialist. So the project I've been working on in my internship is to kind of empower citizens to become citizen scientists. And so they're able to collect information about the natural fauna and flora of Illinois in their own backyard and collect that information and send it to us. And I think that really empowers citizens to feel like they have a place, and I believe that they're more likely to protect species within their own backyard when they feel empowered to do so.
Thank you. We're now verging on 10 o'clock, and we try to always have this done by then. I did want to do one final thing. There is another unit in the Center for State Policy and Leadership. We'll have that segment next year. The Institute for Illinois Public Finance, led by Professor Ken Kriz, who's got his hand up back there. He'll be on next year at this time with something fabulous to do, but they were brand new. We decided to save them the burden of having to prepare a video on public finance. I'll be curious to see how that works, but I'm sure with Cody's involvement in his team, you'll be able to come up with something. Anyway, I indicated at the beginning that we wanted to give you information about our annual report. There is a summary, just a set of highlights from it at the table in really small print, so I apologize if your eyes are strained. But that's the way we could fit it on one sheet of paper. As about 3 or 4 years ago, we stopped printing a document in order to save money, so now it's just available online at this web address. But anybody who has been at this event, we will be sending out an email with a connection to the report, so you should feel free to check that out at your leisure. With that said, I want to thank everybody for coming. Really appreciate your support. Hope you found that this was informational, and that you believe the kinds of things that we were able to capture in this 40, 50-minute program reflect well on the ability of the University of Illinois Springfield to continue to bolster public service in the state of Illinois. So thank you.